today is the day. We're finally going to work on a project a lot of you have been waiting for quite a while now, I think. We're going to make an observatory. A few months ago, I put out a poll. I mean, it's been almost a full year now, about 7 months ago. I put out a poll asking you guys what project you wanted to see me work on next, and it was actually pretty close. It was almost like a 50-50 split between the city here, the shores, or the shoreside city, and an observatory. I think it was actually like 12 to 11 votes, and I put my opinion in, but I'm not going to tell you which one. The consensus was that the city is a high wanted topic, or high wanted project. So I know we've already talked about it, but we have a plan for it. So I promise it's in the works. But because observatory won, we are going to work on finding a spot for this observatory that I designed and built. And let me tell you, I think I may have went a little overboard with it, because it is a lot bigger than it probably needed to be. It actually ended up turning into kind of like two different buildings. I wanted to try and put it kind of in this area, but it just didn't work out with the layout of the land because of how big it is. So right across this way here, I think that this area over here would look really cool to have the observatory. It has like a long climb up a hill. Ooh, lag spikes, I'm loading chunks. Oh geez, it's so bad. So along this hillside here, I think it would be a really cool spot for it. So like I said, it's two buildings. So there's going to be a main structure here and the actual observatory over here. So there's going to be kind of a bridge crossing here, which I think would be really cool, especially because this terrain is just absolutely insane over on this side of the mountain. On this side of the castle area, the fancy area, I think I'm going to put like a maybe a farming village on this side. The big observatory thing, I'm calling it the astronomer's library, because that's kind of what I want it to be, a big library. And then I want the observatory to be on this side. This build is massive. It's mainly made out of quartz, and quartz is not fun to mine, which is another reason why this video has been kind of on the back burners for so long, because mining quartz in the nether is probably one of the worst experiences this game has to offer. The transition, or the trade, or not trade, I guess, the 4-to-1 ratio of quartz ore to quartz block is honestly just terrible, and I'm surprised that that's still how it is in the game. But so it took a while. I needed about, I think, let me see, I actually have the stats. Let's look at the stats. I think I started mining with I think it was at 6,000, and now I've mined approximately 39,000, almost 40,000 quartz ore. So yeah, it's a big build. I have all the materials. I think I actually have most of the materials collected already, so I'm gonna bring them over here, which might take a while because it's a lot, but I'm going to put them over here, and then I think we're going to work on the build together a little bit today. Like I was saying, it took a long time to collect everything here. I think I finished the build itself in December, and I spent the last couple months finishing college, first of all, but also collecting all of this quartz. I think in total it's about 20,000 quartz blocks, or different types of quartz blocks, or something like that. I'm not actually sure the exact amount. We have this many shulker boxes of just quartz alone, and it's a ton of different types. So smooth quartz, quartz pillars. I think this one's just a block of quartz. We got stairs, lots of stairs. I think there's quartz brick. Yeah, quartz brick. So it's a pretty quartz heavy build, and I will probably never do that again. Or we're gonna make a quartz farm, like a bartering system, in the next episode, because I don't ever want to have to do that again. And then we have a ton of oak and blackstone, and just a ton of other random decorative blocks. So if you watched the most recent episode of EchoCraft, you'll know that the house I built is very color forward. I tried my best to try to make a very colorful building, or color oriented building, where I focus purely on the colors and the structure itself, but making the colors work together. And I built that after I built this one. Like I said, I finished this one in December or something like that, and then I worked on the EchoCraft one in March. So a lot of the techniques I learned from building this big thing we're about to build, I actually put into place in the EchoCraft house. So this one's not as perfect as it could have been. I think I could have done a little bit better if I were to redesign it, but I don't want to redesign it. We might just add stuff onto it later. And I think that in the future, I will maybe pick some blocks that are maybe more more survival friendly, possibly. And I believe this is everything we need. I kind of organized it by block type, I think, mostly. I hope I did. When I designed this, I actually had a really big issue with trying to pick a color scheme for it. I had a couple different types of blocks I chose. So for this build, I decided to go with quartz, black stone roof, and like accents with oak and mangrove wood and diorite. So I went through a couple different things. I wanted to use prismarine, but I thought that looked a little bit too plain, I think. I don't know what the right word is. You'll see soon, but maybe at the end of the video I'll take you in my creative world and I'll show you maybe at the end of the video we can go through my creative world and kind of go through some of the design choices I made. But for now, I think I'm going to try to get the base down, and we'll kind of walk through it together a little bit as best as I can. It's going to be a little tough to try and walk through this build, but I think it'd be kind of cool to kind of break it down into pieces and my ideas of, or my design choices of how I decided to pick apart the structure itself. All right, well, here we have the front door, the front entrance. And I spent a lot of time on this part of the build itself. I actually think that I spent the majority of the time on this part of the build, and I think it paid off. I really like this part. That's kind of what I want to show it off. Kind of why I want to show it off right now. I decided to try to do a couple of different things here that we'll kind of walk through. So we'll start with the kind of the entranceway here. So I want it to be kind of a grand entrance, like a very large staircase that will kind of, it might come down a little bit further, maybe down to right here even. But in this area, it actually has kind of a nice natural staircase look to it, like in this little area. So I'm going to try to follow that itself, and then I'm going to go to the entrance here. I might make it go down further. Then we have the door itself, and I went back approximately 1, 2, 3, 4 layers to try to get the depth of the door itself looking to be the way it is, because if I did any more, it kind of went too far, and if I went any less, it just looked a little too flat. The next thing I really tried to work on, and I've been trying to work on a lot in my other builds, and I think it kind of stemmed from the cherry blossom tree that's kind of over the hill there. You can't see it, but the curves of the cherry blossom tree, the branches, are probably my favorite part of the build, and I really enjoy the way that the curves looked. So I tried to implement some more of these kind of like fancy swirls and curves and little details that maybe aren't super noticeable, but they add to the build itself, and they kind of add more of a luxurious look, or maybe that's not the wrong word. From up close, they don't really look like much, right? They kind of just look like a ton of blocks organized a little weird, but if you take a step back or kind of take a look from where you're going to be viewing it more often, you can see that the curves themselves kind of stand out a little bit more, and kind of look more natural, especially around this area. Like the white of this area is kind of where I shaped the curve itself. So the wood kind of outlines it, but the white is kind of the area that I paid attention to more to try to get these nice flowy lines in. And I've been learning how to do that a lot more, and the rest of the build isn't as detailed as the front itself, which is why I kind of want to go over this first. Because after this, if you look at the base of the outline here, it kind of repeats the same pattern. These are going to be windows. It's not going to look like that entrance. So on this side and that side, it'll be a big window. And then on this side is where we're going to connect the bridge up to the observatory, which will be over there. And then it'll just go across this way. There is a couple more layers to this. It actually goes up, I think. So there'll be a roof right here, and then another roof up there. So there's still quite a lot to build, but I think that this is the most intricate part of the build, and I kind of wanted to maybe just showcase it while there's not a whole lot of other things to look at right now. Now that this layer is all built, the biggest part of this whole building, I think, I kind of want to take you through some of the detailing that I chose to do. You know what? Let's go into free cam. It's probably gonna be a little easier. We saw the entrance already, and some of the patterns we can kind of see, I guess, up here. kind of repeated through the entire build except for this little corner piece, but we'll get into that. A lot of the build is kind of involving these circle shapes and these curves, like I kind of mentioned before when we discussed the front. And on the side here, we can see that kind of in full effect. So this is based off of a reference picture. I hope I can still find it. It's been a while since I've looked at it. I wanted to try to keep these circles consistent throughout because in the reference picture, these were in there, and it was really tough to try to keep the circles continuing through the build, especially around angled curves like this, but I think I did a good job. If we take a closer look, to get it to be a smooth circle, which this is probably a better angle, you can see that the curve itself is kind of like a smoother transition. You do little tricks like this with the trapdoors and such, which I'm sure is probably kind of well known by now. For some other things, like this is a cool part of the build, I think. So the circle kind of goes through this pillar here, and then I added some detailing, which you can probably only see up close. I wanted to add buttons, but I thought that was kind of a little much. That curve is repeated here as well, a very smooth transition. And because we're using quartz, I had to use iron trapdoors. So every iron trapdoor that's in this vertical position, I had to hide a lever in some pretty unique places. So if we kind of look through the build itself, I don't think there's any on the top layer. But on this part, it was kind of just straight up on the wall itself. So if we go on the inside, we can kind of see it better. So there's a couple places where I just have to blatantly have them out because I couldn't hide them very well, but I tried my best to hide them. So it kind of helps with that smooth transition. And since we're using quartz again, we're using the only white trapdoor that we have. And so all of these little shapes here and there, I tried to be pretty unique with and keep any curve as smooth as I could by using trapdoors, or in this case over here, we'll get to it, I use signs. And the shaping here was honestly incredibly difficult. I struggled with it a lot, but I'm happy with the way it turned out. If we look from a distance here, this kind of looks like it bulges out a little bit, but as we get closer or like look from a different angle, we can tell it's mostly flat. So I tried to be creative with that to try to make it not look so flat on the corner view profile. So this curve and then like the depth of this going back kind of helped with that. And then of course the window, which this time of day it's not super vibrant, but you know what? I bet if we go to this side, it might be. Yeah, so if we look at it from this side, it's kind of all right. I try to do like a fancy color transition here. So we have cyan and then blue, then magenta, and then red glass. So it kind of has like a pretty smooth color transition, rainbow transition. I think it actually added a lot more, what's the word? Not detail. Character to the build, because before I was using just gray stained glass, and I think it looks good for this part of the build, but in the corner I wanted more color, so I added this little gradient here. And speaking of gradients, you can tell probably by now that I didn't use a whole lot of coloring techniques with this one. A lot of it is just plain coloring. So I have like pillar blocks and smooth blocks and quartz brick blocks, but I didn't add a lot of gradients or anything like that. So that stair is the wrong orientation. But yeah, so I think that because there's so much detail going on in the build itself, like all of the different shapes and like structure and different like there's just so much going on that I think that adding more color would have been bad or harmful to the build itself. So I just went with plain for the most part, but I honestly think it looks really good regardless of that. And so yeah, and the top part here, it's probably not super noticeable, but I tried to make like a planet because it is an observatory and I didn't really know where else to add like fun little things like that. I guess I could have added it here, but I tried to be creative and add like a planet with a ring around it and a moon. I don't know. It does, maybe not this angle. Let's look at the one with the sunlight. It's, you can't really tell, but I think it added a little bit more to break up the repetition of like these little curved shapes here. I wanted to add something different there. And I don't know, this corner was tough. The whole process of building this corner, I think took the longest. While we have some daylight, let's look on this side of the build and kind of look at this window. I really like the window. It's weird. It kind of reminds me of like a dragon or like an old Viking window. I don't know why. I think it's just the curves, but it honestly, now that I'm looking at it, kind of looks like two seahorses kissing. Oops. Well, now I can't unsee that, but if we get it close and ignore that, the shaping here is kind of unique in the sense that you can't really tell from a distance exactly what's going on here. There's a lot of stair play. There's a lot of different angles and different orientations of the stairs itself. that kind of give it this unique shape. And I also put signs here, which I kind of mentioned before, that kind of just give it a different block height, because there's so much going on here that I wanted it to be as smooth as I could, and just having the slab here um, was not enough, and having a whole block here was too much. So from a distance, those disappear around, like, yeah, right there. But you can see that like that block transition is not super great, but up close it just barely gives it enough to kind of smooth it out. I guess we can kind of move on to the inside here. So we got a lot of space here to work with, right? And you can see that the inside shows a lot more of the red, just vibrant red all the way throughout the build. And I think I'm going to work with that when we get to working on the interior in another episode. And I think I'm going to move away from using the quartz on the inside, maybe using it as an accent rather than the main color, because I think that's just, it doesn't look as good on the inside. Like the outside, it looks fine because the red is the accent and the white's the main color. But on the inside, it seems like the red kind of stands out more. So I'm going to change it up on the inside a little bit, I think. I'm not really sure how to do that yet. I have an idea, and we'll go into my creative world where I actually worked on the build a little bit more near the end of the episode to check out some of the different color variations I chose. And I think I have a good one for the interior, which we'll go over later. But I think that is all for this level of the build. We are going to be building like a dome shape, and then another kind of section here, and then another dome, and then like a big spike, which I'm sure is you probably see it already in the thumbnail. But this was the biggest part of it. Now that I got this out of the way, the rest of it should go pretty quickly, I think. And then once we're done with this building, we'll move on to the actual observatory part, and then we'll probably work on the bridge. I'm not sure if I have to do more terrain building around here, but I think we're pretty much done with this area. So, all right, first layer of the roof is done. Oh man, I didn't look at it when it was finished from inside. That's actually really cool looking. We might have to do something with that. But the first layer of the roof is done. We are going to break it up into two parts because the second level, this level here, is a lot more intricate with the details. So I feel like if I split it up into two little sections, it won't be as overwhelming to kind of talk about. So if we take a look here, we have the main dome shape, which is in the center here, and these triangle bits on each of these little outcrops of the build. And that kind of breaks up the dome shape, so it's not just a pure circle. And again, I'm using a reference image, which I really hope I found. I'm sure you guys are going to get sick of me saying this, but the curves here are kind of only meant to be seen from a distance. It kind of blends a little bit better from afar, but if even up close, it doesn't look too bad. But we have these kind of intricate curved shapes here, similar kind of pattern as we did here, kind of curve in on itself kind of thing. And then we also have like little spikes on the roof itself because it kind of added a little bit more detail. If it was just a pure triangle shape, it was a little too boring, I think. And then we also have these little steps here, which again, really mainly just for depth and detail from a distance. So it's not just a flat shape. There's a little bit of bumping here and there. And then we have which from this angle with the sun, it's not super obvious, but we have these little pillars here that kind of break up the dome shape and the similar colors that the dome has. The coloring on this side's a little better. So yeah, you can see that the little spikes here kind of add a little bit more detail. Again, just to break up how similar this whole dome shape tends to look when you build a dome roof. And we also went with blackstone. When we go to the creative world, I'll kind of show you some of the variations I went with, but the blackstone really complements the oak and the mangrove wood, the strip mangrove wood, really well. I think that the deep darkness of it, like the purplish hue, kind of fits really well. I tried to use like deep slate and it was just too plain and gray, and then some other blocks, of course. But this one I think stood out really well, and it's just a plain black stone, which I think even the detail of it itself, like the little stones, little circular stones, from a distance, can't really tell. From up close, I think it actually looks like a really good roof texture. And then, of course, we have these little pillar objects on the side here. And so this is kind of where it really comes down to looking at this from a distance, because from up close, of course, it looks kind of blocky, and you can tell that there's glass panes here. And I wanted to use glass panes because it adds this little texture here where the wall comes out. And in creative mode, you can kind of do that without using glass panes. But in survival, if you don't use glass panes, it looks like this, which I left open like that. And if I were to put andesite walls here, it would just look too blocky because it's not see-through. And the glass from a distance kind of adds like a see-through effect. So the shape is still there. We have that like peak looking thing. This is okay, but if you look at it from like certain angles, it's just too plain and there's not enough depth to it that the glass panes actually add to it. So this is a little technique I'm sure a lot of you already know about, but you can add glass panes and it'll extend the wall out. And if you're not using shaders, it's not as obvious that there's glass panes here, but with the reflectiveness that shaders adds, it's a little more obvious, but it still looks good, I think. But yeah, so this is the first layer. Of course, we're gonna add another one here, but I think looking at it, breaking it up into these kind of sections makes it a little easier for me to explain the bits and pieces more thoroughly without me forgetting maybe some of the more cool looking little details and stuff like that. Next part, we're just going to build this second layer, and this part is going to be really tough to talk about because there's a lot going on, but we'll start building it. I may have underestimated how much daylight we have, so we'll just kind of go through some of this while we can until it gets too dark. We look at it from this side, so it's not all orange. We have these big doors here, or not doors, big windows here. So eventually on the inside here, I'm going to put a big platform of something, not really sure quite yet. So these might not be glass, but right now they're just a glass placeholder. But you can see that I wanted to do a ton of arches here. You can see there's little baby arches like this, little even smaller baby arches, and then it just kind of grows and then expands. So I think that looks really cool. And again, this is based off of like the reference image, but I did my best to try and showcase some of the detail that the image had. And it was really difficult to do in survival. This is a really good example of it because right here in creative, I can kind of have this staircase be like a perfectly corner staircase. It doesn't have to be this flat face like from this side or from maybe this side. It looks okay because I want to match this little square that I have here, and at an angle it looks okay from here. Out of daylight. If we look through this though, the detail I'm trying to match from the flat face on the corner face was really tough because like I was just saying, you can't get those corner steps in survival without another stair being connected to it. So if I wanted this to have, let's see, is there another stair I can kind of show it off of? Yeah, so like here in this corner, I'd probably want something like this stair here where it kind of connects to the edge to each side so that it blocks off this little bit here, but you can't do that. So I did my best. I kind of just perceived it from certain angles. So from this angle, you can kind of see there's that square I'm trying to mimic there, and there it is right there from this angle. It looks pretty good. You can't really, I mean, it's not a detail you're probably going to notice. It's probably just going to be something that I notice. I really tried to match each detail from the front facing side to the diagonal facing side. And if you're ever building on a diagonal and you're trying to replicate something you can build on the flat face like this, it takes a lot of work and it takes like a lot of like fine detail, which I am not very good at yet. So it was a big challenge, and I think that this was probably the hardest part, especially because of how much like little details are in here. So I'll kind of walk through the front face a little bit, and then maybe we'll go over the side a little bit. So I wanted these curves to be pretty smooth. So it's a little awkward from up close, but from a distance, it's so nice. I think that these little, it's so hard to show this without my crosshair being in the way, but these little angles all around here, I smoothed it out as best I could. Even right here, I smoothed it. From a distance, it helps. From up close, it kind of maybe looks a little goofy, especially with all these trapdoors and stuff. But it just adds that little bit of detail, a little bit of depth that I really want to try to practice. I think from up close, it still looks good. And of course, like I was saying, we're probably going to have little balconies here and there. And so these pillars here are based off of there's a creator on the bakery server that I play on, and they make amazing pillars. So this is their design. It's by Vahan. I'm not sure exactly how to say it, but I'll try to link their Instagram or YouTube. I think they just have Instagram in the description down below, because I think you guys should check out their artwork. It's insane. They're not their artwork alone, but their Minecraft artwork, I would say, because they do really good at doing all of these pillars and stuff like that. There's a lot of detail going on here, right? So we have the anvils, the flower pots, the flowers themselves, these levers with the face down to kind of smooth out this angle. Same with the what are these called? Tripwire hooks, just to give it a little bit of extra character when we're from a distance. And then we have these here. Oop, that one's turned the wrong way. I didn't even realize that. Oops. So these grindstones also just kind of add a second, like a transition state. And if you look at Vahan's artwork, they do a lot such smooth lines. I think that they really try to perfect their lines. So they do a really good job at finding blocks with in between like middle ground. So for example, this little gap here is so small. There's like 2 pixels, and then it transitions, and then it's about another 2 pixels, and then 2 pixels, and then all the way up top to 1 pixel. So it's just such a smooth transition from a distance. If we look at it with shaders, it's kind of tough, honestly. But you can see how smooth that the pillar is. The peak of it just looks so good. And the detail of the anvils kind of adds a little bit of character, so that it's not just a perfectly straight line. There's a little bit of angles that we kind of work with, as well as with the flowers and the flower pots. And there's just so much going into this. I kind of added that here as well on the big pillar. So if we jump up to this one, there's something that we're going to add here near the end of the video that I think is probably the best place for this object, the dragon egg. I was not really like sure where to put the dragon egg, so it's just been in the end for a while, but I think this will be the perfect little placeholder for it. But I think I went over most of the detail. Of course, we have these pillars here that are, I mean, pretty basic, so not much to talk about there. But now I think it is time to work on the actual observatory part. This is amazing. This one is going to be a lot more plain than that one is, but I think it'll still be really cool, and I think that once you guys see it, you'll be pretty excited too. I am in love with this. I have just been flying around just looking at it. I'm actually out of rockets now, but I can't get enough of this. I'm in love. It turned out so well. Oh man, it's just so cool. The bridge looks great. The observatory looks great. Oh man, I'm so happy with how this turned out. It took forever to finally get it done, but oh man, I am I'm so happy with how this looks. Let's grab a couple more rockets and take a couple more fly rounds. This is by far my favorite build. And the funny thing is, out of both of these buildings, I think the bridge is my favorite part. I I I don't have words. I'm speechless. I love it. It looks so good. In the creative world, it was pretty good, but it was all in flat ground, and now that it's just like it looks so good in the real like environment with different shapes and different lengths of blocks and building style, and oh, I just love it. I love it so much. The video is getting kind of long, so we didn't add any cool cinematics to it. Maybe we'll add some at the end here, but I will try to walk you through as much as I can. It's probably going to be a pretty long video because I want to walk through this as best as I can. And let's start with the observatory. Oh man, it's massive. So let's see. I'm planning on doing a cool little pathway, and I think I'm going to transform this village into like an actual village. I think I maybe mentioned that already, but I think that I'm going to add more of a path to this area so that we can walk up to this thing and then add a door. But if we walk up to it and just kind of get a feel for how big this whole thing is, it's huge, and it's so exciting. So let's look at the door first, right? So we got this massive door that is not functional. There's no way to get in right now. It's just a flat wall, but there's so much going on here, and I think it's just like the perfect amount of detail. And um, how it works is we got these observers looking into a piston block here with some basalt blocks going all the way up, so it just adds like this massive grand effect to it. These levers don't do anything, and in fact, these pistons, because of these levers, if I do anything to these blocks around it, the piston will activate, so I'm just kind of avoiding touching it for now. But if we fly up to the top here, we have two different layers. So we have the layer with the telescope, which we'll take a deeper look at here soon, but we got this room here, which I think is actually really cool. I don't know what to do with it yet, but I think that just the feel of this room is just it's super good. I'm super happy with it. So I think I might add a couple staircases that kind of circle around and then get to the top, but there's no way up there yet. So if we take a look at the star of the show here, we got this massive telescope, and it's probably the most detailed thing out of both of these buildings, which we can take a look here. So we got the viewing lens here. It's just a little trap door or trap hook, trap line, whatever. What is it called? I'm not actually sure. trap hook. Um, and it's just sitting on stilts right now. Eventually, I'm probably going to add more of like a more detailed stilt situation, but I think for now it kind of works out until the rest of the build is done. So if we go into Cheaty Cam here, um, this telescope I was the very first thing I designed. I've actually, if you watched any of my live streams, we worked on the observatory a very long time ago, and the original observatory is none of it actually made it all the way through to the end. The only thing that did was the telescope because I think I nailed it on my first try. So if you look on like Pinterest and stuff, a lot of the telescopes have this like shape to it, right? And they use the lanterns and all of these like cool little block shapes. And we got the glass shading, so it looks like the top of it has more of like a shine to it with the white glass. Then we got copper going along the edge to kind of mark out where there's more structural integrity along the lines here, and then just a gold block look to it. So it's actually kind of dangerous here at nighttime. So for now, we're gonna sleep, and then we'll come back in. Oh, and then we got the auroras. The auroras are doing their thing. Oh man, this is so cool. Maybe we'll stay here for the night. It's gonna get real dangerous here though. If we take a look on the inside here, the gold of it adds just like a worn effect, right? Like from a distance, I've said that probably a million times now. Oh my gosh. What a view. This is I'm so happy. This is my favorite. This is my favorite build. This is amazing. I I I have nothing. I got nothing to say. That's just beautiful. Um so yeah, so we got let's look at the roof here because this is probably the most detailed part. Actually, you know what? We're going to sleep because I don't want anything to get blown up while we're out here and it's already dangerous. So we're going to go sleep in one of these guys' house real quick. So if we hop back up here, it looks safe-ish, kind of. Hopefully we don't die. If we look up here, probably the most detailed part of this observatory itself is actually this little bit on the roof. And this is the first part I designed, and I kind of built everything downwards. So I worked with the telescope, and then I worked on the roof, and then I just built downwards. So I think that this turned out really well. I love the shape of it. It's such a cool look to it. It adds like this little bulge right there that just gives it a little bit more depth and shape and outline and just character. And I've all these words that I've used 5,000 times. I think that this little part really just nails it. As we go down, we got some of the detailed stairs here that go alternating back and forth just to add a little bit of obscurity, not such straight lines here and there. It just adds just a little bit of uniqueness to it. And then we got the big massive doors, and then we got these side pillars, the supporting pillars here, the big platform, which I really wish I made this when 1.21 was out, which it is now. It took that long between updates that the new update actually is out at this point in time when I'm recording this. I wish I could use the tough block, but I haven't updated quite yet. I might add a platform around the library later, but it's such a massive build that I really just don't know how to do that yet. Let's get to my favorite part of the whole build here, the bridge. I don't know how this turned out so well. I am in love with it. This is just it's so well done. I don't know. I think it's the curves, honestly. And I think it just is such a unique look to it, and it's so I don't know how to describe it. I don't know what to talk about because I just want to look at it. So we'll try our best. So we got the supporting pillars here, and it's really not even thick. This is 1 block thick, but it looks so structurally sound, you know? Like I don't know how else to describe it. It just looks so it looks like it belongs, I guess, is a pretty good way to say it. We got the curve as best as we could. We did this smooth transition that we've been working with this whole time. Starts out here, goes into stairs, slabs, or slabs, stairs, and then works away with the walls to kind of smooth this little bit out. And then we got the glass transition. And I think that honestly really helps because we got both of those the little curves here, the archways, right? So we have this one and then we have this one here, and they're both just so smooth. And I think that's what it does it. I think it's just how smooth these little bits are. And then we got the details here. Was me just kind of messing around, trying to get try to break up some of the flatness that it would kind of show if this was like a solid material. Like if this was just all quartz right here, it would just look so plain. So I think I just messed around with trying to bring in some shapes and some unique curves to it, and I think it turned out really well. I maybe might change these. If I were to change anything, I think it'd be these little bits here and there, just because I think they're too flat. You know, everything is so detailed, and then it's just kind of a flat look to it. So if I were to change anything, it'd probably be those. So if we fly on here and just kind of walk through it, so this is where it'll be a second layer here in the library. If we walk down this way, it's a pretty big like sidewall here, right? It's like it's taller than I am, so there's a lot of protection going on here. But if we look at it and we just kind of take a walk down, this is kind of what I wanted. I wanted this to be a very long walkway, so you get to see this thing and just get closer to it and get like a glimpse of the scale of this thing. It's huge. It's massive. It probably goes both ways, but I feel like just the like because it's just a straight up pillar of a building, like it's just a big circle that goes all the way up. It just looks huge. Like this has so much depth to it that I think it kind of widens it out and doesn't make it feel as big. I mean, it still feels massive, but this is just you walk up to it and it's just your entire view is this thing. All you want to look at is just this massive observatory. Then I'll add a door here eventually, but it's just so I'm seriously at a loss for words. I'm trying to think of any descriptive things to talk about, and I just want to look at it. I don't I don't know what else to do besides just look at this area. I'm in love with this. I love this transition. Um yeah, I got nothing else. I think honestly that's gonna be all for this episode. This was a very long episode, and I apologize for that, but there's a lot to talk about, and I tried to do my best at kind of being more involved with the building process. I bet I could be a little less involved, honestly, but there's just so much detail that I wanted to talk about, and I really wanted to showcase like as much of it as I could so that you guys could see it. Maybe learn some things, add some stuff to your build, like add some curves to your build, add some cool little shapings to your building or something like that. I don't know. It's been a really fun build, and I think honestly this whole observatory, astronomers library, all of it, it's honestly I think made me a better builder because of how much detail I put into it, and I've worked with colors and shading techniques and like all of these unique things that I think that this has really improved my building uh, prowess. I don't know. I don't know the right word for it, but I think it's improved my building skills a lot. And I'm going to hope to add that into more of my buildings that are small and not massive. Um, because I think that small buildings are now where I'm going to start to struggle with because I think I've kind of got the hang of larger builds. And I need to kind of nail down some of the smaller stuff. So we'll probably work on maybe making another bartering system with the auto crafter that's coming out. I'm really excited for that. Do like a gold farm, an automatic gold farm that crafts into an automatic bartering station or something like that. Something fun with the crafters next episode to kind of give me a break from building. And it'll probably come out a lot quicker when I'm designing redstone versus this. And I want to apologize again for how unfrequent my videos are. I graduated college. I'm in the process of moving. I got a new job. So there's just been so much uncertainty going on that I just had not a lot of time to really do anything. So I just fit in this stuff where I can, but I think in the future it's going to settle down a little bit more. A few of you have actually asked for some of my builds and some of my like my cherry blossom tree, and I'm sure some of you are going to want the schematics to these. So I'm thinking about putting a Patreon out. I don't know if that's a good idea or not. It wouldn't be anything too crazy. I just think it'd be a really good way to kind of organize everything into one place. When I was designing this, I really could have used a lot of feedback, but I didn't want to spoil anything. So I think it would be a really good place for me to kind of do like sneak peeks and maybe some personal chats with some of you guys that are really interested, so we can kind of go over some of the layouts of some of the builds and get you guys' feedback and just kind of, I don't know, be more connected, I think, because the comment section is a great way to do it. But I think that without spoiling too much on my personal, like on the YouTube channel, I think that it would be a good way to kind of connect with you guys. As an example, we can go into the creative world and I can show you some of the different building colors I wanted to go with and just how much I struggled with that and how I decided on this one. And I think that having your guys' feedback would have been a great way to do that. So we'll hop into the creative world real quick. So these are the three main colors I wanted to go with. You can see this is the one we chose. This is the one that's in the survival world right now. I started with this one, and you probably don't notice too much of a difference. I'll have to let's turn my render distance up so we can see both of them at the same time. If we look at this one here, I think it looks good. This is what I originally started with, and we can see that I used the deep slate tiles, and I think they're just a little too gray, and I think it maybe worked with this style of build. I went with like a lighter touch to it with birch planks and still the mangrove wood. But I think that with the mangrove being such like a rich dark red, or rich red, maybe not dark red, but like a rich red, the oak just looks just so much better together. I think that the deepness of them kind of contrast each other perfectly. But I did think that this one maybe would have fit because of the first gate entrance kind of has this color scheme to it. And I don't mind it. I just think that it's too, I don't know, it's kind of just too obvious, you know? Like it's just everybody kind of goes with this color scheme, and I wanted it to be a little different. So I decided to go with this one here, right? And then you can see in the background all of my different observatory choices that I attempted to go with. And this one here is probably the one that I liked the most, but I thought it felt not as like grand. Like I think it's beautiful. I honestly, this color scheme is what we're going to do for the inside. The dark oak with the spruce and the mangrove wood is going to be what the interior looks like, which I think would look really good. For the exterior, there was something about it that I didn't feel right about, you know? I don't know how to really explain it. I think it looks really good. The coloring is just beautiful, and it would have been a lot easier to gather this material rather than quartz, but I think it works better as an interior versus the exterior. Or maybe I'm crazy. I don't know. I'm sure you guys will have an opinion about it. So those kind of decisions, those kind of coloring choices and decisions are what I think that the Patreon would be good for. I think that it might be a good way to kind of just give you guys sneak peeks of what I'm building, what I'm working on, things I'm really debating, like questionable colors or questionable build styles or things like that, where it could be a little bit more personable without overloading your guys' feed, and some of the feedback you guys give me could be like more directly answered. It would be a place where I could give you guys all of my downloads, all of like my world downloads, my schematics, all of these builds, like the telescope. If you really like the telescope, I can give you this building, the bridge, the library, things like that, my cherry tree, and it would also help support me as well, just as a creator. Or maybe you guys have a better idea of a place where we could all talk and chat and kind of get a bit of a more personable community going. Maybe Discord. I'm not really sure where to go with it. Whatever you guys say in the comments, I will definitely take into account. And I do want to say thank you guys for your patience once again. You guys' feedback has been great in the comments. The videos have been doing really well lately. I appreciate all of your guys' comments and the feedback you give on the builds and all of those things. It really helps me know I'm kind of heading in the right direction, and it also helps me know what you guys don't like, you know, like what part of the video you don't like, what part of the build you don't like, and I can work on it. I can improve my content for you guys. So I really appreciate all of the feedback you guys have been giving me. I've really appreciated it. But yeah, that'll probably do it for this episode. I really appreciate you guys, and I will see you in the next one.